you hear me? Okay, thank you. So I'm going to ask the people in the back if you can come closer, because there's this strong light, and I have the feeling that I'm about to die, and I'm seeing the light and stuff like that. So if you can come closer, because I'm just seeing shadows, weird shadows, that would be great. No mandate, just if you feel like. So my name is Isabel. His name is Armando. We come from CloudBees, and we're here to talk about the quality cultural transformation that we had at CloudBees. How we were doing things some time ago, and how we're doing it right now. And we say bake quality in because it's really to think about quality from the beginning of the definition of our product and get that along the way. So that's why we make the similarity with the baking stuff. We're going to talk about like 4 things. First is to talk about what's the idea behind doing this, why we did this, what's the motivation and the goal. The second one is the shift to the left, which is one of the ways we managed to get quality going. Then Armando is going to talk about the delivery process and how we do rollouts to our customers. And then we're going to analyze if we have actually moved the needle in quality or not by doing all these initiatives. So why did we start doing this? What are the motivators? So there are 2 big ideas behind this. It's just efficiency and quality. And that's our goal in the release team and in the quality engineering team. Efficiency, because we all know that the sooner you find a bug, the easier and cheaper it is to fix it. We were mostly testing a long time ago in the release process. It was, gatekeeping. And we were finding last-minute issues that were gating our releases, stopping and blocking our releases, and that was a waste of time, a big waste of time, and a stopper. So that's one of the motivators. And the second one is risk. So we are customer-centric. The most important thing at CloudBees is to get our customers happy. And we all know that if you release often, you're for sure going to release smaller packages, and that directly reduces the risk to what our customers get and increases quality directly. So the shift to the left. How do we do that? So it's based on the fact that at CloudBees, quality is part of our definition of done. So a story is considered to be ready to be merged and released when it's code complete, of course, tested and documented. And that's the only moment where we're confident enough. If we step back and we think about a traditional quality model, a traditional testing model, you have quality as a quality team's responsibility. So if something goes wrong, you point the tester, why haven't you tested that, right? So that's a model where you usually test at the last stages of the software development lifecycle. And what that causes is a lot of distance between developers, testers, and eventually the release. So the feedback loop is really long and slow. At CloudBees, what we did was actually giving that responsibility of the quality of the product to the entire team. And that causes the entire team, including PM, designer, developers, and the quality engineer, to think about quality from the definition of the product. So no more latest stages, no more finger pointing. It's just, we're all here to give our customers a very robust and reliable product. And that way also, if you get quality from the beginning, you start thinking about quality from the beginning, and then you keep that always feedback. Developers have a lot of feedback all the way along through the development process. So then it looks like quality engineers are not responsible for quality. We do some testing, but we don't do all the testing. So what the hell do we do, right? Why are we getting paid for? So we have 3 pillars. The first pillar is about the scope of what we test. And it's basically helping developers define the testing that they need to be doing for any new feature and any bug fix. So it's basically analyzing the code. You need to remember that we're sitting on top of Jenkins, which is an old code base. So anytime you touch something, there's a risk that you're going to break other stuff. We have also an ecosystem, a community of plugins. So there's a lot of integrations. So we help developers analyzing integrations, dependencies, and making sure that we identify risky areas. That's the first one, like help developers become better testers and risk assessors. The second one is about tooling and automation. So we know that sometimes testing doesn't happen, not because engineers are evil, or lazy. It's just that sometimes a development task that would take 10 minutes, it takes like hours to test it because you don't have the tools, or you don't have the environment, or you don't have the test data. So we make sure that we enable developers to do that by giving them the tools they need, the frameworks they need, the test data environments they need at any time. And the third one is also going back to the customer-centric. So we're delivering new features, and they're going to production with really high quality. But what about existing customers that are using very old features and plugins? So we need to make sure that we keep an eye on the usage in production, the incidents in production, and problems that customers are suffering from, the community and stuff like that, so that we analyze them and see if there are any trends that are going up. So there's a lot of problems with Elasticsearch, so we should probably look deeper into it, analyze root cause, and come up with mitigation actions and preventive plans. So these are kind of the three pillars. I'm going to go deeper into detail in each of them. So how do we help with testing scope? How do we help developers define the scope of what they need to test? So quality bars. So we call quality bars. It could be called test plan. It could be called testing node. It could be whatever. We don't go drinking. Well, we sometimes do, but this is not about drinking. This is about the bar that we set for our products. So we want this high to be the quality. And what are the things that need to happen before going to production to guarantee that that bar still is high? So it's basically a set of quality requirements that need to be met before reaching production. But we often think about quality, especially if you're talking about quality assurance more than engineering. You tend to think about just test cases, right? Functional test cases. But quality is much more. So as I said, integrations, risk assessment of integrations between different components. It's also about scalability. So Jenkins is all about running at scale, and that's important for us. It's also about resilience. So I mean, if a plugin screws a whole Jenkins instance, that's not good. So we need to make sure that the systems are resilient to that. It's about supportability. You can run Jenkins and CloudBees products in almost anything you can imagine. So we need to respect those support policies regarding browsers, OSS, and so on and so forth. It's also about usability. And Jenkins is not very easy to use, and we're getting there. So we need to make sure that documentation is good, accurate, and complete. And that we let people to fall into the pit of success just because it's easy to use and you do the things right the first time. But there's another thing that is important: the way you put your development in production, the way you release things to production. And it's very important to make sure that if things go wrong, the less number of customers possible is going to get affected because you can quickly recover, right? So a quality bar is kind of a set of tasks. So let's imagine that we have a new feature. So you will have, features, stories, or whatever you compile your sprints, or however you do development. But you will have, the list of things development related, and then, tasks for testing that are covering all these areas. And then, you're complete when all these tasks are completed. So there's a lot about automation we're going to talk about. But if there's something we get a lot of value from after defining those quality bars, the way it works is like, okay, now we know the requirements, so we can go away and do our own stuff, and at some point we're completed. But there's something we get a lot of benefit from, and it's exploratory testing. And it's not like developers and testers are doing monkey testing, sitting doing manual testing. It's more that at CloudBees we have the same personas that our customers have, right? We're a development team developing software, but we happen to be developing, CloudBees products and Jenkins. So that's the beauty of this, right? That if you do a team collective session of testing, you're going to have your PM, you're going to have your ops person, you're going to have your developers and quality engineers, and you're going to have like every single persona that Jenkins is designed to satisfy in cloud-based products. So we get the benefit of that, and we see it all together. We have, time-slotted sessions, and we say, okay, I'm going to give you different areas, and you're going to, always test that area from your point of view. So you will find that the PM, finds bugs that are, very, customer-oriented, or the support engineer finds bugs that are very, field-oriented because they are closer to customers. And, that's the beauty of it, that we get all the personas' point of view. So we get like a usability kind of, test session plus functional session in one. And you can see the evolution, like, you do one and, you find stuff, then you do the second, and you find less, and at some point you don't find anything, and it's like, and that's rewarding for the team as well. And it goes back to the sense of ownership of quality. The second pillar was related to tooling and automation. And it's not only we help defining what to test, but we also discuss how to test it, right? There are things that are better tested with unit tests, better tested with integration end-to-end tests, and there are things that just for their nature is better to just monitor them. So we help with that, and we also help like with tooling. So we have kind of a contract. We call the P1 cases. So it's like you talk to a support engineer and you tell him, if this specific case fails, what is that going to cost to customers? Are they going to yell at us, or is that something that they can live with? So we guarantee that all these kind of priority 1 cases are automated. And we also have projects to increase the coverage of legacy code and stuff that we left behind the carpet. It happens, right? And regarding tools, frameworks, test data, and environments and stuff like that, we've been focusing on performance testing lately, monitoring, and increasing coverage of existing features.
What is monitoring?
I'll go back to that in a couple of slides. Can you wait? That's all right. So it's also about providing developers, as I said before, with the necessary tools to do their work in a more efficient way. So some of the testing was happening at later stages in the cycle, or was happening in the computers of the developers, right? So it's also about pipelines. So we also provide pipelines to make developers' work easier and faster. And you don't need to rely on your laptop to do it. So that way, at this step, we have gained confidence of everything that arrives to the delivery stage. So we're given to the release team things that have been tested at a component and integration level. He's going to talk also about compatibility and the supportability policy that we have with different lines and stuff like that. But at this point is integration and component level, but taking as a target a certain time. So it's not like we're going to do backwards compatible testing at this point. And I'm going to talk about monitoring a little bit. So how does our test pyramid look like? Or what do we desire? Different teams behave in different ways, but we're trying to get there where we have a solid base of unit tests. Then we have integration and component tests. And acceptance tests, end-to-end tests are difficult are expensive to maintain, slow, and usually unreliable. We're trying to reduce those and write those only when there's no other way of writing them, of testing that. But at CloudBees products and Jenkins in general, we have features that, it's not, for us, it's not only important to see if they behave properly, but it's also important to see how they behave over time. So how they degrade over time or at scale. So that's what we use monitoring for. So it's a way of you have a system, long-running system, and then you take metrics like, uptime, responses of the API, time of response and stuff like that. So it's another non-functional aspect of your system. So it's not like, I'm testing if the logging works or not. I'm monitoring, the number of responses that I get, if the responses are 200, 500, if it's slow or fast. So that's what I meant with monitoring. So some features, some areas are better suited for being monitored than simply tested. So what happens is that what we call the testing pyramid becomes an hourglass. And that's what's happening right now, especially with our cloud solution, CloudBees Jenkins Enterprise. So I don't know if I have answered your question or not about monitoring. Yeah? Okay, cool. So now I'm going to give the torch to Armando. He's going to talk about the delivery process and how that impacts our transformation.
Right, thank you very much, Isa. So the delivery process, let's talk about it a little bit. So, well, as Isa has mentioned at the beginning of the presentation, one of the things we've done to increase quality is to try to release early and release often. So trying to reduce risks. So, for that we needed to completely change how our delivery process was working. And the reason for that we're gonna see right now. So we're gonna get a bit of context here, see where we were some time ago and where are we now to understand this change. So like a year ago, we were having biannual releases, that's a couple of releases a year, plus security releases which were not very frequent. So at the end of the year, we would end up with I don't know, 5, 6 releases, something like that. And we were maintaining like a couple of products, CAP Client Master and Operations Center, which are all products that we still maintain. So this is where we were 1 year ago. Now we have 2 different release trains. We have a rolling train, which is the one that appears there as monthly releases. We are shipping our products every month, and we also have the fixed release train. It's a more conservative line. We don't cut releases every month, and in there we include the security issues, very, very important new features, and high severity issues. On top of that, we have the security releases, which are now way more frequent than they used to be. So at the end of the year, what we get is more than 20 releases. Some months we have even 3 releases, and counting the different trains and the security releases. And we now have more products. Now we have CloudBees Jenkins Team. There's a booth over there if you have some questions about it. CloudBees Jenkins Enterprise, our enterprise solution in the cloud, and then the other 2 products we used to have. And then on top of that, on top of all our products, we have the CloudBees Assurance program. With that we try to provide a rock-solid distribution, a set of verified plugins that we know that work perfectly fine together, right? So that involves, that's a big challenge as well, as we will see right now. So yeah, challenges. So this was a big change. This wasn't a small project, so we had a number of challenges ahead. We're going to see which one are these and what we try to do to overcome them, right? So, well, first thing, release work cannot afford downtimes. That's pretty obvious. That's obvious for all companies. But I'd like to think that for CloudBees, this is even more critical, okay? Because we're having lots of releases every month, as I said before, more than 2, 3 releases maybe sometimes. And the way we are now providing upgrades to plugins, thanks to the CloudBees Assurance program, is basically we're trying to make customers upgrade the whole product so that their recommended configuration is upgraded at once, right? So because of that, customers are expecting us to release on time. We cannot afford downtimes. I mean, we just cannot afford them. Because of the release pace and portfolio growth that I have just mentioned, we're going to be running more tests, and we're going to be running them more frequently. We're going to be generating much more artifacts, right? We are going to run more right there. We are going to start. We are going to run a lot of historical test builds to be sure that our test suites are healthy at all times, because that's our main tool to be able to provide high-quality product. And of course, we're going to have more time-consuming repetitive tasks, because our products, they are all packaged in a very similar way. So cutting releases of them, there are a lot of repetitive tasks there that we need to try to avoid doing manually. And of course, more pull request builders. Every change that we introduce into our distribution, it's built, it's tested. So we basically need to build a lot of pull requests. So basically, what this means is that we're going to need a CI system that scales better and that we can manage better in a better way. And of course, we're going to need push button releases. I mean, we are releasing all the time. We just want to push a button and in like a matter of half an hour or something like that, have everything ready to be shipped, right? So what else? So as I mentioned before, all our products are packaged in a very similar way, which means that all automated jobs are going to be very similar, but at the same time different in some way. So this calls for basically code reusability, to code reusability. We don't want to duplicate code, right? And for that, using the traditional pipelines that you configure in a job that you create, well, you cannot do this. You cannot stop this code duplication. So for that, we've tried to use latest pipeline features. Okay, we'll talk about it a little bit afterwards, because now I'm going to explain this whole CloudBees transformation, how we have achieved this better scalability and management, how we have achieved these push button releases, and how we have achieved how we have achieved this code reusability using latest pipeline features. So let's start with better scalability and management. We've managed to do that thanks to CloudBees Jenkins Enterprise, our enterprise product in the cloud. We're going to see why. So, management. You see, from my experience, downtimes many times happen because of a bad management of the CI server, lots of people touching pipelines, touching configuration, credentials, installing a lot of plugins. At the end of the day, you end up with this Frankenstein instance that Sasha mentioned the other day in the keynote, and we want to get rid of that, right? So CloudBees Jenkins Enterprise helped us here because of the on-demand provision managed master. Just basically by clicking a button now with the new user experience we are providing, you can create a new team in a matter of seconds, and ensure that each team is isolated from each other, so the instance stays stable, right? Also, scalability. This is a big thing, you know. Since we are now running way more tests, we are running a lot of historical test builds that are very resource consuming. We are generating, we are building way more pull requests. We need more resources, right? Getting all these resources using the traditional agents was quite challenging, right? Because you need to connect external agents to your instances. You need to configure a number of executors in these agents. Maybe if they are all taken by a couple of lightweight jobs, you are not taking advantage of all the resources that your agent is providing for you, right? So scaling this sense would mean adding a lot of new agents, which cost money. Maintaining them and creating them and replicating them is not easy. So, you know, scaling like this was very, very difficult. And CloudBees Jenkins Enterprise helped us scale with the on-demand agent instantiation. So now our agents are instantiated from Docker images. They are fully replicable. We don't have this maintenance problem. And of course, well, they are more efficient because the management of shared resource happen, it's way more efficient because workers are partitioned smartly when allocating resources for each job. So when you configure an agent template, you can basically say how many resources you want to use, so depending on the kind of task you want to do. So at the end of the day, we have less weight of resources than with external agents. And scaling is as simple as just adding more workers, more to your instance, so no further configuration or anything like that. So basically, CloudBees Jenkins Enterprise allowed us to release more products more often. And the thing is that we do it now with less maintenance cost, you know, because adding workers to cope with resource requirements was cheaper in terms of money and working time than adding external agents, right? More confidence, because external agents never become snowflakes as they are instantiated from Docker images, without downtimes, because there are no interaction between teams that can break other people's work, basically. So we are just happy customers of our own products. We are using our same product to ship new version of itself. So that's pretty cool. So latest pipeline features. I talked about before about code reusability. So for that, to overcome this problem, we've used this open source functionality, shared libraries. I don't know if you guys know it, but basically it allows us to define libraries in an external source control system and reuse it, basically, if our pipelines are similar, which is our case, as I mentioned before. We have many pipelines that are very similar, many products that are packaged in a very similar way. And for example, if we want to run tests against them, we run the same kind of test. So at the end of the day, it's just a couple of parameters we need to change. with shared libraries, this made our lives like really, really easy, you know, and we can keep track of who changed a pipeline, why it changes, and so on. And now push button releases, this was a big win. Before getting into detail on what is done in these pipelines that I've mentioned, it's important to say that, you know, CloudBees does continuous delivery. Every bit that is in our master branch or in whatever branch that is ready to be shipped are always, you know, ready to be shipped by just pushing a button. We have the confidence that everything is in a very good shape there, okay? Because every change that gets into our distribution gets tested properly. We run thousands of acceptance tests. We run binary compatibility testing there. So we don't accept any change, you know, in our releasable branch without having passed all our test suites that are huge, and we put a lot of effort to maintain, right? So this is what the pipeline looks like. The first thing we do when we release is generate the signed var. Okay, it's here when we run a lot of build-time checks there to ensure that there are no compatibility problems between plugins in terms of dependencies mainly. And from there we end up with the war files for all these products here. Okay. Right after that, using the WAR files, all the installers are generated, the Windows installer, Debian package, RPM, all these things. All these things are generated for each of the products you see in the first column here, right? So right after the distributables, we need to generate the update center, so where the plugin upgrades come from. Because we have the CloudBees Assurance program, we need to generate 2 different update centers, and this is done automatically, and in a matter of, I don't know, minutes, a couple of minutes. And then finally, we've come up with kind of a standard format for our release notes, so that we were also able to automate how the release notes were created. So it's like you push the button here, you wait like 30 minutes, 40 minutes, something like that, depending on the load of the machine, and then you get everything. But I just told a little lie, because once this finished, our bits are not public, they are not in production. We leave them for a little while in the staging environment, and there's a very good reason for that Isabel is going to tell you about.
So yeah, so I thought that you were going to expect like, yeah, continuous delivery, press a button, go to production, but that's not it. So we have a very special first customer, and it's ourselves. So CloudBees is the first customer of CloudBees Jenkins Enterprise all the time. So as Armando said, we are using CloudBees Jenkins Enterprise to deliver CloudBees Jenkins Enterprise, which puts us in a sweet spot, which is we can do dogfooding. And dogfooding is nothing else than using your own product on a daily basis, right? So what we do after leaving that in staging, we leave the bits in our internal production CI system, the one we use on a daily basis. We'll leave that for between 4 days and a week. And then that allows us to see how the system behaves with the representative customer, right? Testing is synthetic, and we are really representative to what our customers do and how our customers use our product. So you guys can think that since CloudBees Jenkins Enterprise is in our critical path, we have a really good reason for do things right. Because if we screw up, then we're screwing up ourselves. So we have a really good reason to do things in a usable way. And if we find any, so we're using this for 2 reasons actually. If you find any issue, you know, we stop releases until those get fixed. And the second one is that we find, you know, if new features are usable, we use this to drive adoption internally as well to see, you know, if it's usable enough. So these are the 2 things why we do dogfooding. And these are the 2 benefits we're getting from doing dogfooding. And now what happens when dogfooding ends? Armando.
Right, so when dogfooding ends, well, I don't need that anymore. And we're ready to go to production. We just need to click another button. And this time the pipeline is way more simpler, because the only thing we're doing is moving the bits from the staging environment to the production environment, changing the status of some of the release nodes to public, and that's pretty much it. After that, we're ready to go to basically we are in production. So you see, as a conclusion on the delivery process, it's basically to cope with the new requirements, we needed the better management and scalability, latest pipeline features, and push buttons. So thanks to CloudBees Jenkins Enterprise and latest pipeline features, we were able to do this in a with a lot of effort, but actually in a very it was in a very easy way, clean and nice and simple. So that's my part. She's gonna.
So you've seen the two things together, right? How we've embedded quality from the very beginning, all the activities that we do, and then how we release stuff and we get it in a very safe way to our customers. But I'm very number oriented and metric oriented. So how do you know if we're getting better, right? Are we moving the needle really? Are we in a better situation than we were before doing all this work? The only answer is numbers don't lie. So you really need to measure. And why do you want to measure? You want to understand if what you're doing is having an impact or not. On your deliverables, you want to understand customers' pain as well. And once you measure, you also want to drive your roadmap towards your goal, which is, at the end of the day, is relieving customer pain and having happy customers. So what do we measure? We measure two things. Mainly, we measure high-impacted bugs affecting customers per release per component. So that way we can see trends, right? If a component is being more fragile than another, and we need to do, kind of a reliability plan or a quality improvement plan in that area. But the first thing we really pay attention to is the dogfooding issues, the issues that we found, because that means that if it's found during dogfooding, it's very likely that if you, move that all the way to production, it's going to impact customers. So these are the two metrics that we have. And we follow a continuous improvement kind of process where, you go to development, you find an issue in production, you fix it, but that's not it. After that, we do root cause analysis to make sure that we analyze and understand why things are happening in production, and we have tasks in our backlog to prevent that from happening in the future. So then to end, to finalize, have we really moved the needle or not? Do we have numeric results? And the reality is that yes. With all these processes, what we have done is reduce 70% of production issues, and all thanks to the power of CloudBees Jenkins Enterprise. So as Armando said, we are happy customers, and we have happy customers. Do you have any questions? Yeah, you go.
One is, we're too cheap to get Enterprise. So if we tried to do this without CloudBees Enterprise, what areas would become pain points?
So CloudBees Jenkins Enterprise help with shared configuration. You can talk about that if you want. Shared libraries, which are embedded there. Yeah, you help with the scalability. You got the setup out of the box. I don't know. Can you think of any other one? Reliability. Sorry, reliability with CAP. So you have the CloudBees Assurance Program. So you get all the core Jenkins plugins working together through the verification process that we have.
This is something that could have been done without this, but it would have been very difficult. Like a lot of configuration that you need to maintain. We have a lot of configuration as code now for the agents. The managed masters, they are instantiated automatically when you want. And of course, using latest pipeline features, it helped us have more maintainable pipelines and so on. So this whole thing, if we had to maintain it the old way, we probably would require a way bigger team than we have at the moment. We are right now a team of 4. To maintain something like that with the new technologies, it would probably meant like way more people.
The other question I had was an assertion you made, which was that the pieces seem to develop one without impacting the others. Where I work, unfortunately, that's not necessarily true. Even if we maintain the APIs where we're calling each other, sometimes there's a new functionality that must be used. Sometimes, well, yeah, the API looks the same, but it's not. So changing one thing can break other things. How would you account for that?
So do you mean like breaking compatibility on purpose because you do need to do it, or breaking compatibility by mistake?
Both tend to happen.
Okay, so the first one, you need to do it in a way that you deprecate stuff so that people, and you need to communicate.
We can't, unfortunately, always use deprecation. So that deprecation aside, sometimes it's, no, that was
So then I think it's a matter, in our case, of communicating very clearly that you're breaking that and what the expectation is for customers to do and migrate as soon as possible so that they don't get affected. And I mean, CAP is one of those safety nets, right? Because we do that for you. Yeah.
Do you consider yourself as a startup environment where you don't have dedicated QA people or able to focus on the quality? You have to deliver quality with development engineers. You have a dedicated quality team.
So we do have a quality engineering team, and the model that we're following is have one quality engineer embedded with each product team, and that's the way we're working. So having that in mind, the quality is the development team's responsibility from PM to the quality engineer going through developers, and we base our activities in those 3 pillars. But we do have embedded quality engineers per team. Yes. More questions?
Can you share more details about the performance testing is done at CloudBees?
Yeah, so the quality engineering team is pretty young actually, but there are 2 recent initiatives that took place. One was shown around, I don't know if you saw it, so it's a pipeline scalability lab, but that's very pipeline oriented, but that's something that we are starting to use, which is about stressing pipeline factors, like, I don't know, stressing CPU, for instance, and seeing how it behaves, right? So that's one, and the other one is client-side performance testing. So in the keynote, we announced 2 new products. So one is DevOptics, and the other one is CloudBees Teams. So for Teams, we did some client-side performance testing, and what we really did was measuring page load time in the new UI compared to the old one by using JMeter scripts. And we had a Windows machine. So what we did was actually generate the load from a machine in Amazon. And so Windows machine, because we wanted to have representative traffic, so we're generating the traffic from there, and then we're running some JMeter scripts and analyzing page load time. It's a staged test, so it's 0 load, increasing the load and number of users, and then that goes down to also see the tail of when you decrease the load, how long does it take for the system to stabilize. So at the moment, it's a one-off thing. So we haven't managed to really, incorporate that into the continuous cycle. And I don't think we are going to be able to do that because, we really had a very huge system, which is expensive. So, we're starting to think about having dedicated infrastructure for that, like physical infrastructure, instead of spinning up AWS instances. Yeah, you go.
So when your engineering team, quality engineering team is very small, do you guys recommend using, I saw a lot of products in Expo where it will take down, like if you want to, the number of people, like you can do, like I saw PageMeter, other products, which will reduce the number of people that are required to do a certain automation task.
Oh, of course, of course. I mean, JMeter is one of the ones we use, as I mentioned. We're good, open source citizens, so we use Jenkins Enterprise Test Harness, which is based on Selenium. We of course use automation. Yeah. More questions? No? Yeah, there one. Sorry, I couldn't see your hand because I have, this light. I'm seeing the light. You go.
So given that you have like thousands of automated exception tests, what kind of issues do you run into when you don't really, like what type of issues do your tests not cover?
So I mean, scalability are ones. Then weird usages of Jenkins. You're talking about the things that our tests don't cover?
Yeah.
Okay. So things that, for example, dogfooding covers. So issues at scale. So the issues that we miss are issues at scale. I mean, we're humans, we miss cases. So even functional cases, someone's exotic configuration. So we have a lot of that, especially with CloudBees Jenkins Enterprise. So we have a lot of, exotic proxy, reverse proxy configurations put in the middle of, communication between components of the product. And they are difficult to diagnose and difficult to test for. But that's, it comes with the flexibility of the product. So I would say mainly exotic configurations and issues at scale. Yeah. Yeah, you go.
Where I work, we have several products that
Sorry, I cannot hear you. Do we have a mic? A microphone here? We don't. So I'm going to...
I can speak up.
Okay, okay. Thank you.
Where I work, we have several different products that have nothing to do with each other. And so each team kind of ends up doing their own thing. And the problem that we have is we're trying to get the shift left mentality in the teams, but without the centralized quality department. We're having trouble with that. Is that something that you guys experience?
Different teams have different maturity levels and different mentality. I mean, you need to think that you're putting the responsibility of quality in the entire team, and that's not a standard in the market, I would say. So, yes, it's a struggle, but I think that you need to assume that different teams are going to move at different paces, and I think establishing ways of measuring the evolution is good, because then you can compare and you can see, okay, this team has done this and this and this, and they became successful because the numbers say so, right? So then you can then go to other teams and try to do the same. More questions? Yeah?
How long, like what's the average time when customer reports to fix it?
Like mean time to recover, would you say?
Yeah.
Okay, so I don't really know because we're an on-premise, so we don't really host where we're sunsetting Deva Cloud, so we don't have a SaaS product. So the pace at where customers download the new version, upgrade it, find an issue, report it, and then fix it, it's pretty difficult to calculate. Do you have an estimate of that? I don't think we do.
No, I don't think so.
But usually, I mean, we're very customer-oriented. We sell support, really. So if you escalate an issue, it gets fixed in the next release, and we have monthly release. And we do have monthly release. So we have what we call the customer advisory board, and we usually tell customers, hey, what do you think? What do you want? Does this fit your business model and whatnot? And last time in the customer advisory board, they were saying that we release too often. So monthly is, that's it. Because, you need to understand that you download the product, you need to do an upgrade, so it's not a SaaS model. So then it's time consuming for them as well.
So apart from the monthly releases, if something big is found or something like that, we can even have a release before that. And we have different mechanisms to offer these kind of releases through complete upgrades or even through what we call simplified upgrades. It's in the documentation in the CloudBees page. That is basically providing a new configuration for this recommended set I was talking before, and basically that can happen before a month.
I mean,
if it needs to be.
And with security issues, like if a security issue is revealed and it's a big one, it could be a day, right? I mean, as soon as the fix is ready, it's out.
Yeah.
So it really depends on the issue. More questions? No? Okay, guys, thanks a lot for coming. If you have any questions, ask us afterwards. Thanks a lot.
Yeah.